Chapter 11. Images come to me, at random times, usually when I least expect them. Sometimes they are small and fleeting, my grandmother holding a glass of water and opening her mouth to say something, but I never know the words because the image vanishes as quickly as it came. Sometimes they are longer, more lifelike, my grandfather pushing me on a swing. I can feel the strength in his arms as he pushes me up, the butterflies in the pit of my stomach as I race down. My laughter carries on the wind. Then the image is gone. Sometimes I explicitly remember the images from my past, remember being a part of them. But sometimes they are as new to me as though they never happened before. In the living room, with Henry running the Loric crystal up each of my arms, my hands suspended over flames, I see the following. I am young, 3, maybe 4, running through our front yard of newly clipped grass. Beside me is an animal with a body like a dog, but with a coat like a tiger. His head is round, his body barrel-chested atop short legs. Unlike any animal I have ever seen. He crouches, poised to leap at me. I can't stop laughing. Then he jumps and I try to catch him, but I'm too small and both of us fall to the grass. We wrestle. He is stronger than I am. Then he jumps in the air, and instead of falling back to the ground as I expect, he turns himself into a bird and flies up and around me, hovering just beyond my reach. He circles, then comes down, shoots between my legs, lands 20 feet away. He changes into an animal that looks like a monkey without a tail. He crouches low to lunge at me. Just then a man comes up the walk. He is young, dressed in a silver and blue rubber suit that is tight on his body, the kind of suit I've seen divers wear. He speaks to me in a language that I don't understand. He says the name Hadley and nods to the animal. Hadley runs over to him, his shape changing from a monkey to something larger, something bear-like with a lion's mane. Their heads are level, and the man scratches Hadley beneath the chin. Then my grandfather comes out of the house. He looks young, but I know that he must be at least 50. He shakes hands with the man. They speak, but I don't understand what they are saying. Then the man looks at me, smiles, lifts his hand out, and all of a sudden I'm off the ground and flying through the air. Hadley follows, as a bird again. I am in full control of my body, but the man controls where I go, moving his hand to the left or to the right. Hadley and I play in mid-air, him tickling me with his beak, me trying to get a grip on him. And then my eyes snap open and the image is gone. Your grandfather could make himself invisible at will, I hear Henry say, and I close my eyes again. The crystal continues up my arm, spreading the fire repellent to the rest of my body. One of the rarest legacies there is, developing only in 1% of our people, and he was one of them. He could make himself and whatever he was touching completely disappear. There was one time he wanted to play a joke on me, before I knew what his legacies were. You were 3 years old and I had just started working with your family. I came to your house for the first time the day before, and as I came up the hill for my second day the house wasn't there. There was a driveway, and a car, and the tree, but no house. I thought I was losing my mind. I continued past it. Then when I knew I had gone too far I turned back and there, some distance away, was the house that I swore wasn't there before. So I started walking back, but when I came close enough the house again vanished. I just stood there looking at the spot where I knew it must be, but seeing only the trees beyond it. So I walked on. Only on my third time did your grandfather make the house reappear for good. He couldn't stop laughing. We laughed about that day for the next year and a half, all the way till the very end. When I open my eyes I am back on the battlefield. More explosions, fire, death. Your grandfather was a good man, Henry says. He loved to make people laugh, loved to tell jokes. I don't think there was ever a time that I left your house without having a stomachache from laughing so hard. The sky has turned red. A tree rips through the air, thrown by the man in silver and blue, the one I saw at the house. It takes out 2 of the Mogadorians and I want to cheer in victory. But what use is there in celebrating? No matter how many Mogadorians I see killed, the outcome of that day will not change. The Lorik will still be defeated, every last one of them killed. I will still be sent to Earth. I never once saw the man get angry. When everyone else lost their temper, when stress encompassed them, your grandfather stayed calm. It was usually then that he would bring out his best jokes, and just like that everyone would be laughing again. The small beasts target the children. They are defenseless, holding sparklers in their hands from the celebration. That is how we are losing. Only a few of the Lorik are fighting the beasts, and the rest are trying to save the children. Your grandmother was different. She was quiet and reserved, very intelligent. Your elders complemented each other that way, your grandfather the carefree one, your grandmother working behind the scenes so that everything went off as planned. High in the sky I can still see the trail of blue smoke from the airship carrying us to Earth, carrying us 9 in our keepers. Its presence unnerves the Mogadorians. And then there was Julianne, my wife. Far off in the distance there is an explosion, this one like the kind that comes from the liftoff of Earth's rockets. Another ship rises in the air, a trail of fire behind it. Slowly at first, then building speed. I'm confused. Our ships didn't use fire for liftoff, they didn't use oil or gasoline. They emitted a small blue trail of smoke that came from the crystals used to power them. Never fire like this one. The second ship is slow and clumsy compared to the first, but it makes it, rising through the air, gaining speed. Henry never mentioned a second ship. Who is on it? Where is it going? The Mogadorians shout and point at it. Again, it causes them anxiety, and for a brief moment the Lorik surge. She had the greenest eyes I'd ever seen, bright green like emeralds, plus a heart as big as the planet itself. Always helping others, constantly bringing in animals and keeping them as pets. I'll never know what it was she saw in me. The large beast has returned, the one with the red eyes and enormous horns. Drill mixed with blood falls from razor-sharp teeth so large they can't be contained within its mouth. The man in silver and blue is standing directly in front of it. He tries to lift the beast with his powers, and he gets it a few feet off the ground but then struggles and lifts no farther. The beast roars, shakes, and falls back to the ground. It forces ahead against the man's powers, but it can't break them. The man lifts it again. Sweat and blood glisten in the moonlight on his face. Then he doubles his hands over and the beast crashes to its side. The ground shakes. Thunder and lightning fill the sky but there's no rain to go with them. She was a late sleeper, and I always woke before she did. I would sit in the den and read the paper, make breakfast, go for a walk. Some mornings I would come back and she would still be sleeping. I was impatient, couldn't wait to start the day together. She made me feel good just to be around her. I would go in and try to rouse her. She would pull the covers over her head and growl at me. Almost every morning, always the same thing. The beast flails but the man is still in control. Other guard have joined in, every one of them using a power on the mammoth beast, fire and lightning raining down upon it, streaks of lasers coming from all directions. Some guard are doing damage unseen, standing away from it and holding their hands out in concentration. And then high up a collective storm brews, one major cloud growing and glowing in an otherwise cloudless sky, some sort of energy collecting within it. All guard are in on it, all of them helping to create this cataclysmic haze. And then a final, massive bolt of lightning drops down and hits the beast where it lies. And there it dies. What could I do? What could anyone do? In total there were 19 of us on that ship. You 9 children and us 9 Sipan, chosen by no means other than where we happened to be that night, and the pilot who brought us here. We Sipan couldn't fight, and what difference would it have made if we could? The Sipan are bureaucrats, meant to keep the planet running, meant to teach, meant to train new guard how to understand and manipulate their powers. We were never meant to be fighters. We would have been ineffective. We would have died like the rest. All we could do was leave. Leave with you to live and to one day restore to glory the most beautiful planet in all the universe. I close my eyes, and when I reopen them the fight has ended. Smoke rises from the ground among the dead and the dying. Trees broken, the forests burned, nothing standing save the few Mogadorians that have lived to tell the tale. The sun rising to the south and a pale glow growing on the barren land bathed in red. Mounds of bodies, not all of them intact, not all of them whole. On top of one mound is the man in silver and blue, dead like the rest. There are no discernible marks on his body, but he is dead all the same. My eyes snap open. I can't breathe, and my mouth is dry, parched. "Here," Henry says. He helps me off the coffee table, guides me into the kitchen and pulls out a chair for me. Tears are coming to my eyes though I try to blink them back. Henri brings me a glass of water and I drink every bit of it without stopping. I give him the glass and he refills it. I drop my head, still struggling to breathe. I drink the second glass, then look at Henry. "Why didn't you ever tell me about a second ship?" I ask. "What are you talking about?" "There was a second ship," I say. "Where was there a second ship?" "On Lorien, the day we left. A second ship that took off after ours." "Impossible," he says. "Why is it impossible?" "Because the other ships were destroyed. I saw it with my own eyes. When the Mogadorians landed they took out our ports first. We traveled in the only ship that survived their offensive. It was a miracle that we made it off. I saw a second ship. I'm telling you. It wasn't like the others, though. It ran on fuel, a ball of fire following behind it." Henry watches me closely. He is thinking hard, his brows crinkled. "Are you sure, John?" "Yes." He leans back in his chair, looks out the window. Pittacus is on the ground, staring up at us both. "It made it off Lorien," I say. "I watched it the whole way until it disappeared." "That makes no sense," Henry says. "I don't see how it could be possible. There was nothing left. There was a second ship." We sit through a long silence. "Henry?" "Yes." "What was on that ship?" He fixes me with a stare. "I don't know," he says. "I truly don't know." We sit in the living room, a fire in the hearth, Pittacus in my lap. An occasional pop from the logs breaks the silence. "On," I say, and snap my fingers. My right hand illuminates, not as brightly as I've seen it before, but close. In the short amount of time since Henry started coaching me I've learned to control the glow. I can concentrate it, making it wide, like the light in a house, or narrow and focused, like a flashlight. My ability to manipulate it is coming more quickly than I expected. The left hand is still dimmer than the right, but it's catching up. I snap my fingers and say on just to show off, but I don't need to do either to control the light, or to have it come on. It just happens from within, as effortlessly as twitching a finger or blinking an eye. "When do you think the other legacies will develop?" I ask. Henry looks up from the paper. "Soon," he says. "The next one should start within the month. Whatever it is. You just have to keep a close watch. Not all the powers will be obvious like your hands." "How long will it take for them all to come?" He shrugs. "Sometimes all is complete within 2 months, sometimes it takes up to a year. It varies from guard to guard. But however long it takes, your major legacy will be the last to develop." I close my eyes and lean back against the couch. I think about my major legacy, the one that will allow me to fight. I'm not sure what I want it to be. Lasers? Mind control? The ability to manipulate the weather as I had seen the man in silver and blue do? Or do I want something darker, more sinister, like the ability to kill without touching? I run my hand down Pittacus's back. I look over at Henry. He's wearing a nightcap and a pair of spectacles on the tip of his nose like a storybook rat. Why were we at the airfield that day? I ask. We were there for an air show. After it was over we took a tour of some of the ships. Was that really the only reason? He turns back to me and nods. He swallows hard, and it makes me think that he's keeping something from me. Well, how was it decided that we would leave? I ask. I mean, surely a plan like that would have needed more time than a few minutes' notice, right? We didn't take off until 3 hours after the invasion started. Do you not remember any of it? Very little. We met your grandfather at the statue of Pittacus. He gave you to me and told me to get you to the airfield, that was our only chance. There was an underground compound beneath the airfield. He said there had always been a contingency plan in case something of the sort occurred, but it was never taken seriously because the threat of an attack seemed ludicrous. Just like it would be here, on Earth. If you were to tell any human now that there is a threat of an attack by aliens, well, they would laugh at you. It was no different on Lorien. I asked him how he knew about the plan and he didn't answer, just smiled, and said goodbye. It makes sense that no one would really know about the plan, or only a few would. I nod. So just like that, you guys came up with a plan to come to Earth? Of course not. One of the planet's soldiers met us at the airfield. He's the one who cast the Loric charm that branded your ankles and tied you all together, and gave you each an amulet. He said you were special children, blessed children, by which I assume he meant you were getting a chance to escape. We originally planned to take the ship up and wait out the invasion, wait for our people to fight back and win. But that never happened, he says, trailing off. Then he sighs. We stayed in orbit for a week. That was how long it took for the Mogadorians to strip Lorien of everything. After it became clear that there would be no going back, we set our course for Earth. Why didn't he cast a charm so that none of us could be killed, regardless of numbers? There's only so much that can be done, John. What you are talking about is invincibility. It's not possible. I nod. The charm only does so much. If one of the Mogadorians tries killing us out of order, whatever damage it attempts is reversed and done to it instead. If one had tried shooting me in the head, the bullet would have gone through its own head. But not anymore. Now if they catch me, I die. I sit in silence for a moment thinking about it all. The airfield. Lorien's lone remaining elder who cast the charm on us, Loridas, now dead. The elders were the first inhabitants of Lorien, those beings who made it what it was. There were 10 of them in the beginning, and they contained all legacies within them. So old, so long ago that they seem more of a myth than anything based in reality. Aside from Loridas, no one knew what had happened to the rest of them, if they were dead. I try to remember what it was like orbiting the planet waiting to see if we could go back, but I don't remember any of it. I can recall bits and pieces of the journey. The interior of the ship we traveled in was round and open aside from the 2 bathrooms that had doors. There were cots pushed to one side, the other side was devoted to exercise and games to keep us from getting too antsy. I can't remember what the others look like. I can't remember the games we played. I remember being bored, an entire year being spent inside an airship with 17 others. There was a stuffed animal I slept with at night, and though I'm sure the memory is wrong, I seem to recall the animal playing back. Henry? Yes. I keep having images of a man in a silver and blue suit. I saw him at our house, and on the battlefield. He could control the weather. And then I saw him dead. Henry nods. Every time you travel back it'll only be to those scenes holding relevance to you. He was my father, wasn't he? Yes, he says. He wasn't supposed to come around much, but he did anyway. He was around a lot. I sigh. My father had fought valiantly, killing the beast and many of the soldiers. But in the end it still wasn't enough. Do we really have a chance to win? What do you mean? We were defeated so easily. What hope is there for a different outcome if we are found? Even when we have all developed our powers, And when we finally come together and are ready to fight, what hope do we have against things like those? Hope? He says. There is always hope, John. New developments have yet to present themselves. Not all the information is in. No. Don't give up hope just yet. It's the last thing to go. When you have lost hope, you have lost everything. And when you think all is lost, when all is dire and bleak, there is always hope. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12. Henry and I go into town on Saturday for the Halloween parade, almost 2 weeks after arriving in Paradise. I think the solitude is getting to us both. Not that we aren't used to solitude. We are. But the solitude in Ohio is different from that of most other places. There is a certain silence to it, a certain loneliness. It's a cold day. The sun peeking intermittently through thick white clouds gliding by overhead. The town is bustling. All the kids are in costume. We have bought a leash for Bernie Kozer, who is wearing a Superman cape draped over his back, a large S on his chest. He seems unimpressed with it. He's not the only dog dressed as a superhero. Henry and I stand on the sidewalk in front of the Hungry Bear, the diner just off the circle in the center of town, to watch the parade. In its front window hangs a clipping of the Gazette article on Mark James. He's pictured standing on the 50-yard line of the football field, wearing his Letterman jacket, his arms crossed, his right foot resting atop a football, a wry, confident grin on his face. Even I have to admit he looks impressive. Henry sees me staring at the paper. "It's your friend, right?" he asks with a smile. Henry now knows the story, from the near fight to the Camonnier to the crush I have on his ex-girlfriend. Since finding out all this information he has only referred to Mark as my friend. "My best friend," I correct him. Just then the band starts. It's at the head of the parade, followed by various Halloween-themed floats, one of which is carrying Mark and a few of the football players. Some I recognize from class, some I don't. They throw handfuls of candy to the kids. Then Mark catches sight of me and he nudges the guy beside him, Kevin, the kid I need in the groin in the cafeteria. Mark points at me and says something. They both laugh. "That's him?" Henry asks. "That's him. Looks like a dick." "I told you." Then come the cheerleaders, walking, all in uniform, hair pulled back, smiling and waving to the crowd. Sarah is walking alongside them, taking pictures. She gets them in action, while they're jumping, doing their cheers. Despite the fact that she's wearing jeans and no makeup, she's far more beautiful than any of them. We've been talking more and more at school, and I can't stop thinking about her. Henry sees me staring at her. Then he turns back to the parade. "That's her, huh?" "That's her." She sees me and waves, then points to the camera, meaning she'd come over but wants to take pictures. I smile and nod. "Well," Henry says, "I can certainly see the appeal." We watch the parade. The mayor of Paradise passes by, sitting on the back of a red convertible. He throws more candy to the children. There will be a lot of hyper kids today, I think. I feel a tap on my shoulder and turn around. "Sam good." "What's the word?" He shrugs. "Nothing. What's up with you?" "Watching the parade. This is my dad, Henry." They shake hands. Henry says, "John has told me a lot about you." "Really?" Sam asks with a crooked grin. "Really," Henry responds. Then he pauses a minute and a smile takes shape. "You know, I've been reading. Maybe you've heard it already, but did you know that aliens are the reason we have thunderstorms? They create them in order to enter our planet unnoticed. The storm creates a diversion, and the lightning you see is really coming from the spaceships entering Earth's atmosphere." Sam smiles and scratches his head. "Get out of here," he says. Henri shrugs. "That's what I've heard." "All right," Sam says, more than willing to oblige Henry. "Well, Did you know that the dinosaurs really didn't go extinct? Aliens were so fascinated by them that they decided to gather them all up and take them to their own planet. Henry shakes his head. I didn't know that, he says. Did you know that the Loch Ness Monster was really an animal from the planet Trafalgar? They brought him here as an experiment, to see if he could survive, and he did. But when he was discovered, the aliens had to take him back, which is why he was never spotted again. I laugh, not at the theory, but at the name Trafalgar. There is no planet named Trafalgar, and I wonder if Henry has made it up on the fly. Did you know the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens? I've heard that, Henry says, smiling. This is funny to him because though the pyramids weren't actually built by aliens, they were built using Lorien knowledge and with Lorien help. Did you know the world is supposed to end on December 21, 2012? Sam nods and grins. Yeah, I've heard that. Earth's supposed expiration date, the end of the Mayan calendar. Expiration date? I chime in. Like, a best have used before date that's printed on milk cartons? Is Earth going to curdle? I laugh at my own joke, but Sam and Henry pay me no attention. Then Sam says, did you know crop circles were originally used as a navigational tool for the Agrian alien race? But that was thousands of years ago. Today they are only created by bored farmers. I laugh again. I have the urge to ask what sorts of people create alien conspiracies if it is bored farmers who create crop circles, but I don't. How about the Centauri? Asks Henry. Do you know of them? Sam shakes his head. They're a race of aliens living at Earth's core. They are a contentious race, in constant discord with one another, and when they have civil wars Earth's surface is thrown off kilter. That's when things such as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. The tsunami of 2004? All because the Centauri King's daughter went missing. Did they find her? I ask. Henry shakes his head, looks at me, then back at Sam, who is still smiling at the game. They never did. Theorists believe she is able to shift her shape, and that she is living somewhere in South America. Henry's theory is so good, I think there's no way he made it up that quickly. I stand there and actually ponder it, even though I've never heard of aliens called the Centauri, even when I know for a fact that nothing lives at Earth's core. Did you know? Sam pauses. I think Henry has stumped him, and as soon as that thought pops into my mind Sam says something so frightening that a wave of terror shoots through me. Did you know that the Mogadorians are on a quest for universal domination, and that they have already wiped out one planet and are planning to wipe Earth out next? They're here seeking human weakness so that they can exploit us when the war begins. My mouth drops open and Henri stares at Sam, dumbfounded. He's holding his breath. His hand tightens around his coffee cup until I'm afraid that if it tightens any further the cup will crumple. Sam glances at Henri, then at me. You guys look like you've seen a ghost. Does this mean I win? Where did you hear that? I ask. Henry looks at me so fiercely that I wish I had remained silent. From They Walk Among Us. Henry still can't think of how to respond. He opens his mouth to speak but nothing comes. Then a petite woman standing behind Sam interrupts. Sam, she says. He turns and looks at her. Where have you been? Sam shrugs. I was standing right here. She sighs, then says to Henry, Hi, I'm Sam's mother. Henry, he says, and shakes her hand. Pleased to meet you. She opens her eyes in surprise. Something in Henry's accent has excited her. Ah bon. Vous parlez français? Quist super. J'ai personne avec qui je puisse parler français depuis longtemps. Henry smiles. I'm sorry. I don't actually speak French. I know my accent sounds like it, though. No? She is disappointed. Well hell, here I thought some dignity had finally come to town. Sam looks at me and rolls his eyes. All right, Sam, let's get going, she says. He shrugs. You guys gonna go to the park and the hayride? I look at Henry, then at Sam. Yeah, sure, I say. Are you? He shrugs. Well, try to come meet us if you can, I say. He smiles and nods. Okay, cool. Time to go, Sam. And you might not be able to go on the hayride. I need your help at home, his mother says. He starts to say something but she walks away. Sam follows her. Very nice woman, Henry says sarcastically. How did you make all that up? I ask. The crowd begins migrating up Main Street, away from the circle. Henry and I follow it up to the park, where cider and food are being served. You lie long enough and you start to get used to it. I nod. So what do you think? He takes a deep breath and exhales. The temperature is cold enough so that I can see his breath. I have no idea. I don't know what to think at this point. He caught me off guard. He caught us both off guard. We're going to have to look into the publication he's getting his information from, find out who is writing it and where it's being written. He looks over at me expectantly. What? You're going to have to get a copy, he says. I will, I say. But still, it makes no sense. How could somebody know that? It's being supplied from somewhere. Do you think it's one of us? No. Do you think it's them? It could be. I've never thought to check the conspiracy theory rags. Perhaps they think we read them and can root us out by leaking information like that. I mean... He pauses, thinks about it for a minute. Hell, John, I don't know. We'll have to look into it, though. It's not a coincidence, that's for sure. We walk in silence, still a little stunned, turning possible explanations over in our minds. Bernie Koza trots along between us, tongue dangling, his cape falling to one side and dragging on the sidewalk. He's a big hit with the kids and many of them stop us to pet him. The park is situated on the southern edge of town. At the far border are two adjacent lakes separated by a narrow strip of land leading into the forest beyond them. The park itself is made up of 3 baseball fields, a playground, and a large pavilion where volunteers serve cider and slices of pumpkin pie. 3 hay wagons are off to the side of the gravel drive, with a large sign reading, "Be scared out of your wits. Halloween haunted hay rides. Start at sundown. $5 per person." The drive segues from gravel to dirt before it reaches the woods, the entrance to which is decorated with cutouts of ghost and goblin caricatures. It appears that the haunted hayride travels through the woods. I look around for Sarah but don't see her anywhere. I wonder if she'll be going on it. Henry and I enter the pavilion. The cheerleaders are off to the side, some of them doing Halloween-themed face paintings for the kids, the others selling raffle tickets for the drawing to be held at 6 p.m. "Hi, John," I hear behind me. I turn around and there's Sarah, holding her camera. "How did you like the parade?" I smile at her and slide my hands into my pockets. There's a small white ghost painted on her cheek. "Hey, you," I say. "I liked it. Think I'm getting used to this small-town Ohio charm." "Charm? You mean boringness, right?" I shrug. "I don't know, it isn't bad." "Hey, it's the little guy from school." "I remember you," she says, bending down to pet Bernie Koza. He wags his tail wildly, jumps up and tries to lick her face. Sarah laughs. I look over my shoulder. Henry is 20 feet away, talking to Sarah's mom at one of the picnic tables. I'm curious to know what they're talking about. "I think he likes you. His name is Bernie Koza." "Bernie Koza? That's no name for an adorable dog. Look at this cape. It's, like, cute overload. You know, if you keep that up I'm going to be jealous of my own dog," I say. She smiles and stands. "So are you going to buy a raffle ticket from me or what?" "It's to rebuild not-for-profit animal shelter destroyed in the fire last month in Colorado. Really? How does a girl from Paradise, Ohio, learn of an animal shelter in Colorado? It's my aunt's. I've convinced all the girls on the cheerleading squad to participate. We're going to take a trip and assist in the construction. We'll be helping the animals and getting out of school in Ohio for a week. It's a win-win situation. I picture Sarah dressed in a hard hat, wielding a hammer. The thought brings a grin to my face. So you're saying I'm going to have to cover the kitchen alone for a whole week? I fake an exasperated sigh and shake my head. I don't know if I can support such a trip now, even if it is for the animals. She laughs and punches me in the arm. I take out my wallet and give her $5 for 6 tickets. These 6 are good luck, she says. They are? Of course. You bought them from me, silly. Just then, over Sarah's shoulder, I see Mark and the rest of the guys from the float walk into the pavilion. Are you going on the haunted hayride tonight? Sarah asks. Yeah, I was thinking about it. You should, it's fun. Everybody does it. And it actually gets pretty scary. Mark sees Sarah and me talking and scrunches his face into a scowl. He comes walking our way. Same outfit as always, Letterman jacket, blue jeans, hair full of gel. So you're going? I ask Sarah. Before she can respond, Mark interrupts. How do you like the parade, Johnny? He asks. Sarah quickly turns around and glares at him. I liked it a lot, I reply. You going on the haunted hayride tonight, or are you going to be too scared? I smile at him. As a matter of fact, I am going. You going to have a freak out like in school and run out of the woods crying like a baby? Don't be an ass, Mark, Sarah says. He looks at me, seething. With the crowd around, there is nothing he can do without causing a scene, and I don't think he would do anything anyway. All in due time, Mark says. You think? Yours is coming, he says. That might be true, I say. But it won't be coming from you. Stop it, Sarah yells. She works her way in between us, pushing us away from each other. People are watching. She glances around as though embarrassed by the attention, then scowls at Mark first, then at me. Fine, then. You guys fight if that's what you want to do. Good luck with it, Sarah says, and turns and walks away. I watch her go. Mark doesn't. Sarah, I call, but she keeps walking and disappears past the pavilion. Soon, Mark says. I look back to him. I doubt it. He retreats to his group of friends. Henry walks up to me. I don't suppose he was inquiring about yesterday's math homework? Not quite, I say. I wouldn't worry about him, Henry says. He looks to be all talk. I'm not, I say, and then glance at the spot where Sarah disappeared. Should I go after her? I ask, and look at him, pleading to the part of him that was once married and in love, that part that still misses his wife every day, and not the part of him that wants to keep me safe and hidden. He nods his head. Yeah, he says with a sigh. As much as I hate to admit it, you should probably go after her. End of chapter 12. Chapter 13. Kids running, screaming, on slides and jungle gyms. Every kid with a bag of candy in his or her hand, with a mouth stuffed full of sweets. Kids dressed as cartoon characters, monsters, ghouls and ghosts. Every resident of Paradise must be at the park right now. And in the midst of all the madness, I see Sarah, sitting alone, gently pushing herself on the swing. I weave my way through the screams and shrieks. When Sarah sees me, she smiles, those big blue eyes of hers like a beacon. Need a push? I ask. She nods to the swing that has just opened beside her and I sit. Doing okay? I ask. Yeah, I'm fine. He just wears me down. He always has to act so tough and he's downright mean when he's around friends. She twists herself on the swing until the rope becomes taut, then she lifts her feet and it spins her around, slowly at first, then gaining speed. She laughs the whole time, her blonde hair a trail behind her. I do the same thing. When the swing finally stops, the world keeps spinning. Where is Bernie Koza? I left him with Henry, I say. Your dad? Yes, my dad. I am constantly doing that, calling Henry by his name when I should be saying Dad. The temperature is quickly dropping, and my hands are white-knuckled on the rope chain, becoming cold. We watch the kids run amok around us. Sarah looks at me and her eyes seem bluer than ever in the coming dusk. Our gaze stays locked, each of us just staring at the other, no words being said but much passing between us. The children seem to fade into the background. Then she smiles shyly and looks away. So what are you going to do? I ask. About what? Mark. She shrugs. What can I do? I've already broken up with him. I keep telling him I have no interest in getting back together. I nod. I'm not sure how to respond to that. But anyway, I should probably try to sell the rest of these tickets. Only an hour before the raffle. Do you want any help? No, that's okay. You should go have fun. Bernie Koza is probably missing you right now. But you should definitely stick around for the hayride. Maybe we can go on it together? I will, I say. A happiness blooms inside of me, but I try to keep it hidden. I'll see you in a little while, then. Good luck with the tickets. She reaches over and grabs my hand and holds it for a good 3 seconds. Then she lets go, jumps off the swing, and hurries away. I sit there, gently swinging, enjoying the brisk wind that I haven't felt in a very long time because we spent the last winter in Florida, and the one before that in South Texas. When I head back to the pavilion, Henry is sitting at a picnic table eating a slice of pie with Bernie Koza lying at his feet. How'd it go? Good, I say with a smile. From somewhere an orange and blue firework shoots up and explodes in the sky. It makes me think of Lorien and of the fireworks I saw on the day of the invasion. Have you thought any more about the second ship I saw? Henry looks around to make sure there's nobody within earshot. We have the picnic table to ourselves, positioned in the far corner away from the crowd. A little. I still have no idea what it means, though. Do you think it could have traveled here? No. It wouldn't be possible. If it ran on fuel, like you say, it wouldn't have been able to travel far without refueling. I sit for a moment. I wish it could have. Could have what? Traveled here, with us. It's a nice thought, says Henry. An hour or so passes and I see all the football players, Mark in front, walk across the grass. They are dressed up as mummies, zombies, ghosts, 25 of them in total. They sit in the bleachers of the nearest baseball field and the cheerleaders who were drawing on the children begin applying makeup to complete the costumes of Mark and his friends. It's only then that I realize the football players will be the ones doing the scaring on the haunted hayride, the ones waiting for us in the woods. See that? I ask Henry. Henri looks at them all and nods, then picks up his coffee and takes a long drink. Think you should still go on the ride? He asks. No, I say. But I'm going to anyway. I figured you would. Mark is dressed as a zombie of sorts, wearing dark tattered clothes, with black and grey makeup on his face, splotches of red in random places to simulate blood. When his costume is complete, Sarah walks up to him and says something. His voice becomes raised but I can't hear what he's saying. His movements are animated and he talks so fast that I can tell he's stumbling over his words. Sarah crosses her arms and shakes her head at him. His body tenses. I move to stand, but Henry grabs my arm. Don't, he says. He's only pushing her further away. I look at them and wish with everything that I could hear what is being said, but there are too many screaming kids around to focus in. When the yelling stops, they both stand looking at each other, a hurtful scowl on Mark's face, an incredulous grin on Sarah's. Then she shakes her head and walks away. I look at Henry. What should I do now? Not a thing, he says. Not a thing. Mark walks back to his friends, head hung, scowling. A few of them look in my direction. Smirks appear. Then they start walking towards the forest. A slow methodical march, 25 guys in costume receding in the distance. To kill time, I walk back to the center of town with Henry and we eat dinner at the Hungry Bear. When we walk back, the sun has set and the first trailer piled with hay and pulled by a green tractor takes off for the woods. The crowd has thinned considerably and those left are mostly high schoolers and free-spirited adults who total 100 or so people. I look for Sarah among them but I don't see her. The next trailer leaves in 10 minutes. According to the pamphlet, the whole ride is half an hour long, the tractor going through the woods slowly, the anticipation building, and then it stops and the riders are to get off and follow a different trail on foot, at which point the scares begin. Henry and I stand beneath the pavilion and I again scan the long line of people waiting their turn. I still don't see her. Just then my phone vibrates in my pocket. I can't remember the last time my phone rang when it wasn't on recalling. The caller ID reads Sarah Hart. Excitement rushes through me. She must have entered my number into her phone the same day she entered hers into mine. Hello? I say. John? Yeah. Hey, it's Sarah. Are you still at the park? She says. She sounds as though her calling me is normal, that I shouldn't think twice about her already having my number despite my never having given it to her. Yes. Great. I'm going to be back there in about 5 minutes. Have the rides started? Yeah, a couple minutes ago. You haven't gone yet, have you? No. Oh, good. Wait so we can ride together. Yeah, definitely, I say. The second one is about to leave now. Perfect. I'll be there in time for the third. See you then. I hang up, a huge smile on my face. Be careful out there, Henry says. I will. Then I pause and try to bring lightness to my voice. You don't have to stick around. I'm sure I can get a ride home. I'm willing to stay and live in this town, John. Even when it's probably smarter for us to leave given the events that have already happened. But you're going to have to meet me halfway on things. And this is one of them. I don't like the looks those guys gave you earlier one bit. I nod. I'll be fine, I say. I'm sure you will. But just in case, I'm going to be right here waiting. I sigh. Fine. Sarah pulls up 5 minutes later with a pretty friend who I've seen before but have never been introduced to. She has changed into jeans, a wool sweater, and a black jacket. She has wiped away the painted ghost that was on her right cheek and her hair is down, falling past her shoulders. Hey, you, she says. Hi. She wraps her arms around me in a tentative hug. I can smell the perfume wafting up from her neck. Then she pulls away. Hi, John's dad, she says to Henry. This is my friend Emily. Pleased to meet you both, Henri says. So you guys are off into the unknown terror? You bet, Sarah says. Will this one be okay out there? I don't want him getting too scared on me, Sarah says to Henry, motioning to me with a smile. Henry grins and I can tell he already likes Sarah. You better stay close just in case. She looks over her shoulder. The third trailer is a quarter full. I'll keep him safe, she says. We better get going. Have a great time, Henry says. Sarah surprises me by taking my hand and the three of us rush off towards the hay wagon 100 yards away from the pavilion. There is a line about 30 people long. We get to the back of it and start talking, though I'm feeling a little shy and mostly just listen to the two girls talk. As we're waiting, I see Sam hovering off to the side as though contemplating whether or not to approach us. Sam! I yell with more enthusiasm than I intended. He stumbles over. "You coming on the ride with us?" He shrugs. "Do you mind?" "Come on," Sarah says, and motions him in. He stands next to Emily, who smiles at him. He immediately starts blushing and I'm ecstatic he's along for the ride. Suddenly a kid holding a walkie-talkie comes over. I recognize him from the football team. "Hi, Tommy," Sarah says to him. "Hey," he says. "There are 4 spots left on this wagon. You guys want them?" "Really?" "Yeah." We skip the line and jump up onto the trailer, where the 4 of us sit on a bale of hay together. I find it odd that Tommy doesn't ask us for tickets. I'm curious as to why he let us skip the line altogether. Some of the people waiting look at us with disgust. I can't say that I blame them. "Enjoy the ride," Tommy says with a grin, the kind I've seen people wear when told something bad has happened to someone they despise. "That was weird," I say. Sarah shrugs. "He probably has a crush on Emily." "Oh God, I hope not," Emily says, and then fake gags. I watched Tommy from the bale of hay. The trailer is only half full, which is another thing that strikes me as strange since there are so many people waiting. The tractor pulls away, bumps along the pathway, and drives through the entrance of the forest, where ghastly sounds come through hidden speakers. The forest is thick and no light penetrates other than what shines from the front of the tractor. Once that is off, I think, there will be nothing but darkness. Sarah takes hold of my hand again. She's cold to the touch, but a sense of warmth floods through me. She leans over to me and whispers, "I'm a little scared." Figures of ghosts hang just over us from the low branches, and off the drive grimacing zombies lean against various trees. The tractor stops and kills its headlight. Then come intermittent strobes that flash for 10 seconds. There is nothing scary about them, and only when they stop do I understand their effect. Our eyes take a few seconds to adjust and we can't see a thing. Then a scream shoots through the night and Sarah tenses against me as figures sweep around us. I squint to focus and I see that Emily has moved next to Sam, and that he is smiling widely. I'm actually a little scared myself. I put my arm carefully around Sarah. A hand grazes our backs and Sarah grips tightly to my leg. Some of the others scream. With a jolt the tractor turns back on and continues forward, nothing but the outlines of the trees in its light. We drive for another 3 or 4 minutes. The anticipation builds, the foreboding fear of having to walk the distance we just drove. Then the tractor pulls into a circular clearing and stops. "Everybody off," the driver yells. When the last person is off, the tractor pulls away. Its light recedes in the distance, then disappears, leaving nothing but the night and not a single sound other than what we make. "Shit," somebody says, and all of us laugh. In total there are 11 of us. A path of lights turns on, showing us the way, then turns off. I close my eyes to focus on the feel of Sarah's fingers interlocked with mine. "I have no idea why I do this every year," Emily says nervously, her arms wrapped around herself. The other people have started down the trail and we follow. The pathway of lights occasionally flickers on to keep us on our way. The others are far enough ahead that we can't see them. I can barely see the ground at my feet. 3 or 4 screams suddenly ring out in front of us. "Oh no," Sarah says, and squeezes my hand. "Sounds like trouble ahead." Just then something heavy falls on us. Both girls scream and so does Sam. I trip and hit the ground, scraping my knee, tangled in whatever the hell the thing is. Then I realize it's a net. "What the hell?" Sam asks. I tear straight through the twisted rope, but the second I'm free I get shoved hard from behind. Someone grabs me and drags me away from the girls and Sam. I break free and stand, but I'm immediately hit from behind again. This isn't part of the ride. "Let go of me," one of the girls yells. A guy laughs in response. I can't see a thing. The girls' voices are moving away from me. "John?" Sarah calls. "Where are you, John?" shouts Sam. I stand to go after them but am hit again. No, that's not right. I am tackled. The wind is knocked out of me when I'm plowed to the ground. I rush up and try to catch my breath, my hand against a tree for support. I pick dirt and leaves from my mouth. I stand there a few seconds and don't hear a single sound other than my own labored breathing. Just when I think I've been left alone, somebody shoulders into me and sends me flying into a nearby tree. My head slams against the trunk and I briefly see stars. I'm surprised by the person's strength. I reach up and touch my forehead and feel blood on my fingertips. I look around again but can't see anything other than the silhouetted trees. I hear a scream from one of the girls, followed by the sounds of struggle. I grit my teeth. I am shaking. Are the people mixed in with the wall of trees around me? I can't tell. But I feel a set of eyes on me, somewhere. "Get off of me!" Sarah yells. She is being pulled away, I can tell that much. "Okay," I say to the darkness, to the trees. Anger surges through me. "You want to play games?" I say, loudly this time. Somebody laughs nearby. I take a step towards the sound. I get shoved from behind but I catch my balance before I fall. I throw a blind punch and the back of my hand scrapes against the bark of a tree. There is nothing left to do. What point is there in having legacies if they are never used when needed? Even if it means ennui and I load the truck tonight and drive off to yet another town, at least I will have done what I needed to do. "You want to play games?" I yell again. "I can play games too." A trickle of blood runs down the side of my face. Okay, I think, let's do this. They can do all they want to me, but they will not harm a single hair on Sarah's head. Or Sam's, or Emily's. I take a deep breath and adrenaline races through me. A malicious smile takes shape and my body feels as though it has grown bigger, stronger. My hands come on and glow brilliantly with bright light that sweeps through the night, the world suddenly ablaze. I look up. I flash my hands across the trees and sprint off into the night. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. Kevin steps from the trees, dressed as a mummy. He's the one who tackled me. The lights stun him and he seems dumbfounded, trying to figure out where they're coming from. He's wearing night vision goggles. So that is how they are able to see us, I think. Where did they get them? He charges me and at the last second I step out of the way and trip him. "Let go of me," I hear from down the trail. I look up and sweep my lights across the trees but nothing moves. I can't tell if the voice is Emily's or Sarah's. A guy's laughter follows. Kevin tries to stand but I kick him in the side before he gets to his feet. He falls back to the ground with a numph. I rip the goggles from his face and throw them as far as I can and know they will land at least a mile away, maybe 2 or 3 because I'm so angry that my strength is out of control. Then I race off through the woods before Kevin can even sit up. The trail winds left, then right. My hands glow only when I need to see. I sense that I'm close. Then I see Sam up ahead, standing with a zombie's arms around him. 3 others are close by. The zombie lets go of him. "Chill out, we're just kidding around. If you don't resist, you won't get hurt," he says to Sam. "Sit down or something." I snap my hands on and flash the lights in their eyes to blind them. The closest person steps towards me and I swing and hit him in the side of the face and he falls motionless to the ground. His goggles sail into the overgrown brambles and disappear. The second person tries to bear hug me, but I break his grip and lift him off the ground. "What the hell?" he says, confused. I throw him and he hits the side of a tree 20 feet away. The third guy sees this and runs away. That just leaves the fourth, the one who was holding Sam. He lifts his hands in front of him as though I'm aiming a gun at his chest. "It wasn't my idea," he says. "What does he have planned?" "Nothing, man. We just wanted to play a joke on you guys, scare you a little. Where are they? They let Emily go. Sarah is up ahead. Give me your goggles, I say. No way, man. We're borrowing them from the police. I'll get in trouble. I step towards him. Fine, he says. He takes them off and hands them to me. I throw them even harder than I did the previous pair. I hope they land in the next town. Let them explain that one to the police. I grab Sam's shirt with my right hand. I can't see a thing without turning on my light. Only then do I realize I should have kept the 2 pairs of goggles for us to wear. But I didn't, so I take a deep breath and let my left hand glow and begin guiding us up the path. If Sam finds it suspicious, he doesn't let on. I stop to listen. Nothing. We continue on, weaving through the trees. I turn the light off. Sarah. I yell. I stop to listen and hear nothing but the wind blowing through the branches and Sam's heavy breathing. How many people are with Mark? I ask. 5 or so. Do you know which way they went? I didn't see. We push on and I have no idea in which direction we are headed. From far off I hear the groan of the tractor motor. The 4th ride is starting. I feel frantic inside and want to sprint, but I know that Sam can't keep up. He's breathing heavily already and even I'm sweating despite the temperature being only 45 degrees. Or maybe I'm mistaking blood for sweat. I can't tell. As we pass a thick tree with a knotted trunk I get tackled from behind. Sam yells as a fist hits me in the back of the head and I'm momentarily stunned, but then I pivot and grab the guy by the throat and shine the light in his face. He tries to peel my fingers away but it's useless. What is Mark planning? Nothing, he says. Wrong answer. I thrust him into the nearest tree 5 feet away, then I pick him up and lift him a foot off the ground with my hand again around his throat. His legs kick wildly, hitting me, but I tighten my muscles so that the kicks do no damage. What is he planning to do? I lower him until his feet touch solid ground, loosening my grip to allow him to speak. I sense Sam watching, drinking all of this in, but there is nothing I can do about it. We just wanted to scare you guys, he gasps. I swear I will break you in half if you don't tell me the truth. He thinks that the others are dragging you two to Shepherd Falls. That's where he took Sarah. He wanted her to see him beat the crap out of you, and then he was going to let you go. Lead me, I say. He shuffles forward and I turn my light off. Sam takes hold of my shirt and follows behind us. When we walk through a small clearing lit by the moonlight overhead I can see that he's looking at my hands. They're gloves, I say. Kevin Miller's wearing them. Some sort of Halloween prop. He nods but I can tell he's freaked out. We walk for nearly a minute until we hear the sound of running water just ahead of us. Give me your goggles, I say to the guy leading us. He hesitates and I twist his arm. He writhes in pain and quickly rips them from his face. Take them, he yells. When I put them on the world turns to a shade of green. I push him hard and he falls to the ground. Come on, I say to Sam, and we walk ahead, leaving the guy behind. Up ahead I see the group. I count 8 guys, plus Sarah. I can see them now. Do you want to wait here or come with me? It might get ugly. I want to come, Sam says. I can tell he's scared, though I'm not sure if it's because of what he's seen me do or the football players ahead of us. I walk the rest of the way as silently as I can, Sam tiptoeing behind me. When we are just a few feet away a twig snaps beneath Sam's foot. John? Sarah asks. She's sitting on a large rock with her knees to her chest and her arms wrapped around them. She isn't wearing goggles and squints in our direction. Yes, I say. And Sam? She smiles. Told you, she says, and I assume she's talking to Mark. The water I heard is nothing more than a small babbling brook. Mark steps forward. Well, he says. Shut up, Mark, I say. Manure in my locker was one thing, but you've gone way too far with this one. You think? It's 8-on-2. Sam has nothing to do with this. You scared to face me alone? I ask. What are you expecting to happen? You've tried kidnapping 2 people. Do you really think they'll keep silent? Yeah, I do. When they see me whip your ass. You're delusional, I say, then turn to the others. For those of you who don't want to go into the water, I suggest you leave now. Mark is going in no matter what. He's lost his chance to barter. All of them snicker. One of them asks what barter means. Now's your last chance, I say. Every one of them stands firm. So be it, I say. A nervous excitement plants itself in the center of my chest. As I take one step forward, Mark steps back and trips over his own feet, falling to the ground. 2 of the guys come at me, both bigger than me. One swings, but I duck his punch and send one of my own into his gut. He doubles over with his hands holding his stomach. I shove the second guy and his feet leave the ground. He lands with a thud 5 feet away and the momentum pushes him into the water. He comes up splashing. The others stand rooted, shocked. I sense Sam moving over towards Sarah. I grab hold of the first guy and drag him across the ground. His errant kicks slice through the air but hit nothing. When we are at the bank of the brook, I lift him by the waistband of his jeans and throw him into the water. Another guy lunges at me. I merely sidestep him and he lands face first in the brook. 3 down, 4 to go. I wonder how much of this Sarah and Sam can see without goggles on. You guys are making it too easy for me, I say. Who's next? The biggest of the group throws a punch that comes nowhere near hitting me, though I counter so swiftly that his elbow catches me in the face and the goggles strap snaps. The goggles fall to the ground. I can only see slight shadows now. I throw a punch and hit the guy in the jaw and he falls to the ground like a sack of potatoes. He looks lifeless, and I fear that I've hit him too hard. I rip his goggles from his face and put them on. Any volunteers? 2 of them hold their hands up in front of them in surrender, the third stands with his mouth gaping open like an idiot. That leaves you, Mark. Mark turns as though he intends to run, but I lunge forward and grab him before he can, pulling his arms up into a full Nelson. He writhes in pain. This ends right now, do you understand me? I squeeze tighter and he grunts in pain. Whatever you have against me, you drop it now. That includes Sam and Sarah. You understand? My grip tightens. I fear that if I squeeze any tighter his shoulder will pop from its socket. I said, do you understand me? Yes. I drag him over to Sarah. Sam is sitting on the rock beside her now. Apologize. Come on, man. You've proven your point. I squeeze. I'm sorry. He yells. Say it like you mean it. He takes a deep breath. I'm sorry, he says. You're an asshole, Mark. Sarah says, and slaps him hard across the face. He tenses, but I'm holding him firmly and there isn't a thing he can do about it. I drag him to the water. The rest of the geese stand watching in shock. The guy I had knocked out is sitting up scratching his head as though trying to figure out what has happened. I breathe a sigh of relief that he isn't badly hurt. You're not going to say a word to anybody about this, you understand me? I say, my voice so low that only Mark can hear me. Everything that has happened tonight, it dies here. I swear, if I hear one word about it in school next week, this is nothing compared to what will happen to you. Do you understand me? Not a single word. Do you really think I would say anything? He asks. You make sure you tell your friends the same. If they tell a single soul, it will be you that I come for. We won't say anything, he says. I let go, put my foot on his butt, and push him face first into the water. Sarah is standing at the rock with Sam beside her. She hugs me tightly when I get to her. Do you know Kung Fu or something? She asks. I laugh nervously. Could you see much? Not a lot, but I could tell what was happening. I mean, have you been training in the mountains your whole life or what? I don't understand how you did that. I was just scared something would happen to you, I guess. And yeah, there was the past 12 years of martial arts training high in the Himalayas. You're amazing. Sarah laughs. Let's get out of here. None of the guys say a word to us. After 10 feet I realize I have no idea where I'm going, so I give the goggles to Sarah to lead the way. I can't friggin' believe that, Sarah says. I mean, what an asshole. Wait till they try to explain it to the police. I'm not letting him get away with it. Are you really going to the police? Mark's dad is the sheriff, after all, I say. Why wouldn't I after that? It was bullshit. Mark's dad's job is to enforce law, even when his son breaks it. I shrug in the darkness. I think they received their punishment. I bite my lip, terrified of the police getting involved. If they do, I'll have to leave, no way around it. We'll be packed up and headed out of town within the hour of Henry knowing. I sigh. Don't you think? I ask. I mean, they've already lost several of the night vision goggles. They'll have to explain that. And that's not to mention the icy cold water. Sarah doesn't say anything. We walk in silence and I pray that she is debating the merits of letting it go. Eventually the end of the woods comes into view. Light reaches in from the park. When I stop, Sarah and Sam both look at me. Sam has been silent the entire time and I'm hoping that it's because he couldn't really see what was happening, the dark for once serving as an unexpected ally, that maybe he's a little shaken up by everything. It's up to you guys, I say, but I'm all for just letting the matter die. I really don't want to have to talk to the police about what happened. The light falls on Sarah's skeptical face. She shakes her head. I think he's right, Sam says. I don't want to have to sit and write a stupid statement for the next half hour. I'll be in deep crap. My mom thinks I went to bed an hour ago. You live nearby? I ask. He nods. Yeah, and I got to go before she checks my room. I'll see you guys around. Without another word, Sam hurries away. He's clearly rattled. He's probably never been in a fight and certainly never one where he was kidnapped and attacked in the woods. I'll try talking to him tomorrow. If he did see something he shouldn't have, I'll convince him his eyes were playing tricks on him. Sarah turns my face to hers and traces the line of my cut with her thumb, moving it very gently across my forehead. Then she traces both my brows, staring into my eyes. Thank you for tonight. I knew you were going to come. I shrug. I wasn't going to let him scare you. She smiles and I can see her eyes glistening in the moonlight. She moves towards me and as I realize what's about to happen my breath catches in my throat. She presses her lips to mine and everything inside of me turns to rubber. It's a soft kiss, lingering. My first. Then she pulls away and her eyes take me in. I don't know what to say. A million different thoughts run through my head. My legs feel wobbly and I'm barely able to stay upright. I knew you were special the first time I saw you, she says. I felt the same with you. She reaches up and kisses me again, her hand lightly pressed to my cheek. For the first few seconds I'm lost in the feel of her lips on mine and in the idea that I'm with this beautiful girl. She pulls away and both of us smile at each other, saying nothing, staring into each other's eyes. Well, I think we better go see if Emily is still here, Sarah says after about 10 seconds. Or else I'll be stranded. I'm sure she is, I say. We hold hands on the walk to the pavilion. I can't stop thinking about our kisses. The fifth tractor chugs along the trail. The trailer is full and there's still a line 10 or so people long waiting their turn. And after everything that happened in the woods, with Sarah's warm hand in mine, the smile doesn't leave my face. End of chapter 14. Chapter 15. The first snowfall comes 2 weeks later. A slight dusting, just enough to cover the truck with a fine powder. Since just after Halloween, once the lauric crystal spread the lumen throughout my body, Henry has begun my real training. We've worked every day, without fail, through the cold weather and the rain and now the snow. Though he doesn't say it, I believe he's impatient for me to be ready. It started with disconcerted looks. His brows crinkled while he chewed on his bottom lip, followed by deep sighs and eventually sleepless nights, the floorboards creaking under his feet while I lay awake in my room, to where we are now, an inherent desperation in Henry's strained voice. We stand in the backyard, 10 feet apart, facing each other. "I'm not really in the mood today," I say. "I know you're not, but we have to anyway." I sigh and look at my watch. It's 4 o'clock. "Sarah will be here at 6, I say. "I know," Henry says. "That's why we must hurry." He holds a tennis ball in each hand. "Are you ready?" he asks. "As ready as I'll ever be." He throws the first ball high in the air, and as it reaches its apex, I try to conjure up power deep within me to keep it from falling. I don't know how I'm supposed to do it, only that I should be able to do it, with time and practice, says Henry. Each guard develops the ability to move objects with their mind. Telekinesis. And instead of letting me discover it on my own, as I did my hands, Henri seems hell-bent on waking the power from whatever cave it's hibernating in. The ball drops just as the 1,000 or so balls before it did, without a single interruption, bouncing twice, then lying motionless in the snow-covered grass. I let out a deep sigh. I'm not feeling it today. Again, Henry says. He throws the second ball. I try to move it, to stop it, everything inside of me straining to just make the damn thing move a single inch to the right or left, but no luck. It hits the ground as well. Bernie Koza, who has been watching us, walks out to it, picks it up, and walks away. It'll come in its own time, I say. Henri shakes his head. The muscles in his jaw are flexed. His moods and impatience are getting to me. He watches Bernie Koza trot off with the ball, then he sighs. What? I ask. He shakes his head again. Let's keep trying. He walks over and picks up the other ball. Then he flings it high in the air. I try to stop it, but of course it just falls. Maybe tomorrow, I say. Henry nods and looks at the ground. Maybe tomorrow. I am covered in sweat and mud and melted snow after our workout. Henry pushed me harder than normal today and came at me with an aggression that could only be steeped in panic. Beyond the telekinesis practice, most of our session was spent drilling technique in fighting, hand-to-hand combat, wrestling, mixed martial arts, followed by elements of composure, grace under pressure, mind control, how to spot fear in the eyes of an opponent and then know how best to expose it. It wasn't Henry's hard training that got to me, but rather the look in his eyes. A distressed look tinged with fear, despair, disappointment. I don't know if he's just concerned about progress, or if it's something deeper, but these sessions are becoming very exhausting, emotionally and physically. Sarah arrives right on time. I walk outside and kiss her as she's coming up to the front porch. I take her coat from her and hang it when we're inside. Our home easy midterm is a week away, and it was her idea to cook the meal before we'll have to prepare it in class. As soon as we begin cooking, Henry grabs his jacket and goes for a walk. He takes Bernie Koza with him and I'm thankful for the privacy. We make baked chicken breasts and potatoes and steamed vegetables, and the meal comes out far better than I had hoped. When all is ready, the three of us sit and eat together. Henry is silent through most of it. Sarah and I break the awkward silence with small talk, about school, about our going to the movies the following Saturday. Henry rarely looks up from his plate other than to offer how wonderful the meal is. When dinner is over, Sarah and I wash the dishes and retreat to the couch. Sarah brought a movie over and we watch it on our small TV, but Henry mostly stares out the window. Halfway through he gets up with a sigh and walks outside. Sarah and I watch him go. We hold hands and she leans against me with her head on my shoulder. Bernie Koza sits beside her with his head in her lap, a blanket draped over both of them. It may be cold and blustery outside, but it's warm and cozy in our living room. "Is your dad okay?" Sarah asks. "I don't know. He's been acting weird. He was really quiet during dinner." "Yeah, I'm going to go check on him. I'll be right back," I say, and follow Henri outside. He's standing on the porch, looking out into the darkness. "So what's going on?" I ask. He looks up at the stars in contemplation. "Something doesn't feel right," he says. "What do you mean?" "You're not going to like it." "Okay. Let's have it. I don't know how much longer we should stay here. It doesn't feel safe to me." My heart sinks and I stay silent. They're frantic, and I think they're getting close. I can feel it. I don't think we're safe here. I don't want to leave. I knew you wouldn't. We've kept hidden. Henry looks at me with a raised brow. "No offense, John, but I hardly think you've stayed in the shadows." "I have where it counts." He nods. "I guess we'll see." He walks to the edge of the porch and places his hands on the rail. I stand beside him. New snowflakes start falling, sifting down, specks of white shimmering on an otherwise dark night. "That's not all," Henry says. "I didn't think it was." He sighs. "You should have already developed telekinesis. It almost always comes with your first legacy. Very rarely does it come after, and when it does, it's never longer than a week later." I look over at him. His eyes are full of concern, and creases of worry traverse the length of his forehead. "Your legacies come from Lorien. They always have. So what are you telling me?" "I don't know how much we can expect from here on out," he says, and pauses. "Since we're no longer on the planet, I don't know if the rest of your legacies will come at all. And if that is true, we have no hope of fighting the Mogadorians, much less defeating them. And if we can't defeat them, we'll never be able to go back." I watch the snow fall, unable to decide whether I should be worried or relieved, since perhaps that would bring an end to our moving and we could finally settle. Henry points at the stars. "Right there," he says. "Right there is where Lorien is." Of course I know full well where Lorien is without having to be told. There is a certain pull, a certain way that my eyes always gravitate towards the spot where, billions of miles away, Lorien sits. I try to catch a snowflake on the tip of my tongue, then close my eyes and breathe in the cold air. When I open them I turn around and look at Sarah through the window. She's sitting with her legs beneath her, Bernie Koza's head still in her lap. "Have you ever thought of just settling here, of saying to hell with Lorien and making a life here on Earth?" I ask Henry. "We left when you were pretty young. I don't imagine you remember much of it, do you?" "Not really," I say. "Bits and pieces come to me from time to time. Though I can't necessarily say whether they are things I remember or things I've seen during our training." "I don't think you would feel that way if you could remember." "But I don't remember. Isn't that the point?" "Maybe," he says. "But whether or not you want to go back doesn't mean the Mogadorians are going to stop searching for you. And if we get careless and settle, you can be assured they'll find us. And as soon as they do, they'll kill us both. There's no way to change that. No way." I knows he's right. Somehow, like Henry, I can sense that much, can feel it in the dead of night when the hairs on my arms stand at attention, when a slight shiver crawls up my spine even though I'm not cold. "Do you ever regret sticking with me for this long?" "Regret it? Why do you think I would regret it?" "Because there's nothing for us to go back to. Your family is dead. So is mine. On Lorien there is only a life of rebuilding. If it wasn't for me, you could easily create an identity here and spend the rest of your days becoming a part of some place. You could have friends, maybe even fall in love again. Henri laughs. I'm already in love. And I'll continue to be until the day that I die. I don't expect you to understand that. Lorien is different from Earth. I sigh with exasperation. But still, you could be a part of somewhere. I'm a part of somewhere. I'm a part of Paradise, Ohio, right now, with you. I shake my head. You know what I mean, Henry. What is it that you think I'm missing? A life. You are my life, kiddo. You and my memories are my only ties to the past. Without you I have nothing. That's the truth. Just then the door opens behind us. Bernie Kosar comes trotting out ahead of Sarah, who is standing in the doorway half in and half out. Are you two really going to make me watch this movie all by my lonesome? She asks. Henry smiles at her. Wouldn't dream of it, he says. After the movie, Henri and I drive Sarah home. When we get there, I walk her to her front door and we stand on the stoop smiling at each other. I kiss her goodnight, a lingering kiss while holding both her hands gently in mine. See you tomorrow, she says, giving my hands a squeeze. Sweet dreams. I walk back to the truck. Henry pulls out of Sarah's driveway and steers towards home. I can't help feeling a sense of fear while remembering Henry's words the day he picked me up from my first full day of school. Just keep in mind we might have to leave at a moment's notice. He's right, and I know it, but I've never felt this way about anyone before. Like I'm floating on air when we're together, and I dread the times when we're apart, like now, despite having just spent the last couple of hours with her. Sarah gives some purpose to our running and hiding, a reason that transcends mere survival. A reason to win. And to know that I may be putting her life in danger by being with her, well, it terrifies me. When we get back, Henry walks into his bedroom and comes out carrying the chest. He drops it on the kitchen table. Really? I ask. He nods. There's something in here I've wanted to show you for years. I can't wait to see what else is in the chest. We pop the lock together and he lifts the lid in such a way that I can't peer in. Henry removes a velvet bag, closes the chest, and relocks it. These aren't part of your legacy, but the last time we opened the chest I slipped them in because of the bad feeling I've been having. If the Mogadorians catch us, they'll never be able to open this, he says, and motions to the chest. So what's in the bag? The solar system, he says. If they aren't part of my legacy, then why have you never shown me? Because you needed to develop a legacy in order to activate them. He clears the kitchen table and then sits across from me with the bag in his lap. He smiles at me, sensing my enthusiasm. Then he reaches down and removes 7 glass orbs of varying sizes from the bag. He holds them up to his face in his cupped hands and blows on the glass orbs. Tiny flickers of light come from within them. Then he tosses them up in the air and all at once they come to life, suspended above the kitchen table. The glass balls are a replica of our solar system. The largest of them is the size of an orange, Lorien's sun, and it hangs in the middle emitting the same amount of light as a light bulb while looking like a self-contained sphere of lava. The other balls orbit around it. Those closest to the sun move at a faster rate, while those farthest away seem to only creep by. All of them spinning, days beginning and ending at hyperspeed. The fourth globe from the sun is Lorien. We watch it move, watch the surface of it begin to form. It is about the size of a racquetball. The replica must not be to scale because in reality Lorien is far smaller than our sun. So what's happening? I ask. The ball is taking on the exact form of what Lorien looks like at this moment. How is this even possible? It's a special place, John. An old magic exists at its very core. That's where your legacies come from. It's what gives life and reality to the objects contained within your inheritance. But you just said that this isn't part of my legacy. No, but they come from the same place. Indentations form, mountains grow, deep creases cut across the surface where I know rivers once ran. And then it stops. I look for any sort of color, any movement, any wind that might blow across the land. But there is nothing. The entire landscape is a monochromatic patch of gray and black. I don't know what I had hoped to see, what I had expected. Movement of some kind, a hint of fertileness. My spirits fall. Then the surface dims away so that we can see through it, and at the very core of the globe a slight glow begins to form. It glows, then dims, then glows again, as though replicating the heartbeat of a sleeping animal. What is that? I ask. The planet still lives and breathes. It has withdrawn deep into itself, biding its time. Hibernating, if you will. But it will wake one of these days. What makes you so sure? That little glow right there, he says. That is hope, John. I watch it. I find an odd pleasure in seeing it glow. They tried to wipe away our civilization, the planet itself, and yet it still breathes. Yes, I think. There is always hope, just as Henri has said all along. That isn't all. Henry stands and snaps his fingers and the planets stop moving. He moves his face to within inches of Lorien, then cups his hands around his mouth and again breathes onto it. Hints of green and blue sweep across the ball and begin to fade almost immediately as the mist from Henri's breath evaporates. What did you do? Flash your hands on it, he says. I make them glow, and when I hold them over the ball the green and blue come back, only this time they stay as my hands shine upon it. It's how Lorien looked the day before the invasion. Would you look how beautiful it all is? Sometimes even I forget. It is beautiful. Everything green and blue, plush and verdant. The vegetation seems to waver beneath gusts of wind that I can somehow feel. Slight ripples appear on the water. The planet is truly alive, flourishing. But then I turn my glow back off and it all fades away, back to shades of gray. Henry points at a spot on the globe's surface. Right here, he says, is where we took off from on the day of the invasion. Then he moves his finger half an inch from the spot. And right here is where the Lorien Museum of Exploration used to be. I nod and look at the spot he is pointing to. More gray. What do museums have to do with anything? I ask. I sit back in the chair. It's hard to look at this without feeling sad. He looks back at me. I've been thinking a lot about what you saw. I say, urging him on. It was a huge museum, devoted entirely to the evolution of space travel. One of the wings of the building held early rockets that were thousands of years old. Rockets that used to run on a kind of fuel known only to Lorien, he says, and stops, looking back to the small glass orb hanging 2 feet above our kitchen table. Now, if what you saw did in fact happen, if a second ship managed to take off and escape from Lorien during the height of the war, then it would have to have been housed at the Space Museum. There's no other explanation for it. I'm still having a tough time believing that it would have worked, and even if it did, that it would have gotten very far. So if it wouldn't have gotten very far, then why are you still thinking about it? Henry shakes his head. You know, I'm not really sure. Maybe because I've been wrong before. Maybe because I'm hoping I'm wrong now. And, well, if it had made it anywhere, then it would have made it here, the closest life-sustaining planet aside from Mogador. And that's to assume that there was life on it in the first place, that it wasn't just full of artifacts, or that it wasn't just empty, meant to confuse the Mogadorians. But I think there had to have been at least one Lorien manning the ship because, well, as I'm sure you know, ships of that nature couldn't steer themselves. Another night of insomnia. I stand shirtless in front of the mirror, staring into it with both lights in my hands turned on. I don't know how much we can expect from here on out, Henry said today. The light at Lorien's core still burns, and the objects we brought from the still work, so why would that magic have ended there? And what about the others? Are they now running into the same problems? Are they without their legacies? I flex in front of the mirror, then punch the air, hoping that the mirror will break, or a thud will be heard on the door. But there is nothing. Just me looking like an idiot standing shirtless, shadowboxing with myself while Bernie Koza watches from the bed. It's nearly midnight and I'm not tired in the least. Bernie Koza jumps off the bed, sits beside me, and watches my reflection. I smile at him and he wags his tail. How about you? I ask Bernie Koza. Do you have any special powers? Are you a super dog? Should I put your cape back on so you can go flying through the air? His tail keeps wagging and he paws the ground while looking at me through the tops of his eyes. I lift him up and over my head and fly him around the room. Look. It's Bernie Koza, the magnificent super dog. He squirms under my grip, so I set him down. He plops on his side with his tail thumping against the mattress. Well, buddy, one of us should have superpowers. And it doesn't look like it's going to be me. Unless we go back to the Dark Ages and I can supply the world with light. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm useless. Bernie Koza rolls onto his back and stares at me with big eyes, wanting me to rub his belly. End of chapter 15.